Hey everyone, this is Scott from certmedia.com. Today we're going to be going over WP Fastest Cache, the free version. We will only be covering the free features. I'll briefly mention the pro features to you just so you understand what they are, but we won't go into them in depth. This is only free version only review. WP Fastest Cache is more comparable to something like W3 Total Cache, as in instead of just being a page caching plugin, it has additional functionality to improve the load time of your website. So when you first install it, you're going to be met with the cheetah at the top, and it's going to give you the option to delete your cache and the new menu on the far left for the settings. To first turn on the page caching system, you have to click enable. Otherwise, the cache system does nothing by default. And you'll be able to tell that it works by when you're let's see real quick. We're going to come over here and we're going to go and view it as a non-logged in user, and you'll scroll down and you'll see that WP Fastest Cache file was created, and you need to refresh to see the cached version. Now that we've refreshed it, the page is now starting from as the static HTML file. So that's a simple basic functionality. It's comparable in this regards to Cache Enabler, but let's look at some of the other options. So the widget cache will go ahead and cache SQL queries that widgets make, but this is not available in the free version. Preload will automatically preload the page cache system for users who, that way they get served a cached version of the website before they click to view that page. When you enable this option though, you'll be met with a new pop-up window. I recommend leaving it as these options. You go homepage, post, categories, pages, tags, and if you have custom post types, have those preloaded. And then the average host should be able to support 6 pages per minute. I believe the max you can put is 12. And then you can click there's a final option to restart after completed. What this will do is after it goes through the entire website and it caches every single page, it will restart. So it'll start redoing all the pages once again. So say you have 10 pages on your website, it takes 2 runs to do it. It will then start to go through and redo them every single time in a loop. This can be beneficial if you have pages that need updating frequently, and you may not be doing a manual purge, or they may not be updated in a standard fashion, but for more or less, you should never really need that option. You'll do that and you'll click OK. You don't want to show the cache version for logged in users ever, normally. Mobile cache, don't show the cache version for desktop to mobile devices. If you have a responsive theme, you don't need to worry about this option. The reason you don't need to worry about this option is responsive designs don't need to be served a different version unless you're doing a PHP check for the user agent. So if you have any sort of code that checks user agents, or you're using a mobile theme like WP Mobile, then you don't need to check. Then that's the only situation when you would need to check this option. Otherwise, there's the option to create the cache for the mobile theme, which is different. If you check this option, mobile devices will just not be served a cache version at all. If you check this option, it will create a mobile specific cache, but it can only be done on the premium version, which is kind of annoying. The new post will clear the cache files when a new post is published. I recommend that you clear the secondary option instead of the entire cache to conserve on system resources. And then on the updates of a post, I recommend doing the exact same thing, but making sure again that you're only checking the secondary option. That way you're not clearing out the entire cache for a single post, which can cause, it can affect the performance of the pages, and it can take up more server resources, particularly if you have a very large website with many pages and posts. Minify HTML, what this will do is it'll clear out white space and in theory comments. So as you can see, while logged in, I've got about 394 lines of HTML. If I come back to our version over here, let me clear the cache since it doesn't do it on its own. Come over here and we'll reload it once. And now it's down to 232. So it's not the most efficient. It cleaned out the extra white space, but it didn't minify everything like it should have, which is kind of depressing, but that's the reason that they have the premium version do that. That way they can upsell you on it. That's what the more powerful minify HTML is. It'll do something more comparable to Cache Enabler, which removes effectively everything that's in line. It compresses it down to as few lines as it physically can. And that's just going to be the more effective system. Minify CSS. You could decrease the size of the CSS files. What this will do is, as it says, it will go through your CSS files and it will minify them. And we'll show you this. So if you look at our site real quick, we have the block library and the 2020 style.css. So if we reload this now they're all renamed to WP-FC minified, and it's an okay minification system. It strips out the comments, but it doesn't remove all the extra lines, as you can see. And the reason for that, again, is that way it's only in the CSS Plus, which requires you to pay for it. The other option is to combine the CSS. And I found even when you have an HTTP2 enabled website, combining CSS and JavaScript files almost always yields a faster load time, solely because the file sizes get smaller and there's the connection latency from spinning up all the extra requests doesn't really matter. So if we go over here, we've enabled the combine option now, and you can tell it's working because it's commented out the lines that were the original CSS files. You click on here, and now you have an entire merged file. But again, because this isn't the premium version with the ultra super amazing CSS minification, you still have tons of white space. So it's not a great solution by any means. I highly recommend you use Autoptimize for this sort of functionality, but it's there. Now, here's something interesting though. You can minify the JS, which will do the exact same thing as the CSS. It will strip out the comments and try to clean up some white space, but you could only do that in the premium version. To use the combined CSS though, you can do that even in the free version. Now there's a caveat. It says in parentheses header, and this is what's going to matter. So if you're over here, we're going to see we only have 3 JavaScript files, it looks like. The 2020 JS index, because it does not use jQuery, it looks like. And then we have the WP embed JS in the header and the footer. And you can see this right here. The little JS here and the WP embed here. If we reload it now, the WP fastest cache JS is here, and it only merged JS that was in the header. And you could tell that it only merged the one file because it gave the source URL here. So what this does is the JavaScript in the header, which on most websites tends to be jQuery migrate and jQuery JS. It merges it into one file. It will not minify that file. It will not move anything that's in the footer to the header and combine it. It will only combine the JS that's in the header, and that's it. So for most websites, I wouldn't use this option. Moving JS into the header into one large file isn't really useful. You want the JS to be in the footer, and you want it to be loaded asynchronously. So you're better off using something like Autoptimize. I wouldn't really check this option. It's pretty useless in the free version. In fact, this option should pretty much just not be here. gzip, what this will do is it'll reduce the size of files sent from the server. It just gzips them, which is, think of like a zip file. If you ever take a bunch of text files and you zip it, you'll always get a smaller size at the end of it. It's the same concept. You should enable this option. Browser caching, it'll add browser caching rules. You should enable this option. That way the browser can cache CSS, JavaScript, and image files that are served from the web server. And then the disable emojis, it will remove the emoji inline CSS and the JavaScript. I will show you what that looks like. So just so you have reference, this is the emoji JS and the CSS right here. And when it's disabled, it removes all of it. The only thing that it doesn't do is remove the DNS prefetch request, which I'm assuming is just a bug, because it really should just remove the prefetch request as the file no longer exists. And then there's more premium options to defer and load assets asynchronously, but they're only in the premium version. So now what we can do is we can delete the cache, you can delete the minified CSS and JS. You can also add rules. So for the cache timeout wizard. So let's say if the request URL is the home page, then you can clear the cache on a scheduled interval. So let's say you want to clear your home page cache once every day. You can do that. and then you can even set a time, or you could just choose to do every 3 hours. You can also set if the request URL is equal to a particular post. You can do a starts with, or on a reasonable size site, you could just choose to clear it out once a day and then make sure that preload follows up, and do it sometime when you're off traffic. So 1 a.m. in the morning, you're probably not getting much server traffic then for most websites. You'll go ahead and you'll just set this up. Now what will happen is every day at 1 a.m. server time, this website will clear its entire cache, and then it will start preloading it once again. This is useful if you have contact forms or just any sort of content that is using a nonce, things that have a timeout. But it's just a good habit to regenerate the pages to make sure everything is staying up to date. If you update a plugin, you want to make sure everything's staying up to date on the front end. You just want to make sure that your cache is being cleared on a regular interval. If the website is what I call in archive mode, which is where you're not updating it and you're really only keeping it because it gets a good amount of traffic for the sake of keeping it, then what you should do then is not have a timeout rule and just leave it at the default purge on update rules. But for active sites that you do work on, you do update and you do maintain, clear it out once a day. If you don't update it very frequently, go ahead and you can set it to once every 3 days, but I wouldn't go much farther than that. I wouldn't go much farther than a week. For image optimization, it's a premium feature. What it'll do is that it will compress your images losslessly or losslessly, depending on what you want. Premium, this is their upsell to get you to buy the premium. Exclude, what this will do is it will automatically write exclusion rules. So what this means is it will exclude the cache from certain and under certain conditions, or exclude user agents from getting the cache version. So WP login and WP admin, you obviously don't want to be cached. That's why they're included by default. Exclude user agents. It will exclude the user agents from being served a cache page like Twitter bot, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn bot. There's not really a whole lot of reason I could see why this is doing it, but if you update your preview image, for instance, so let's say you update your open graph image in Yoast SEO, and you want to make sure that Facebook is getting the latest version, but you run it after you update it and it's not reflecting, this would allow it to register that, hey, this has been updated, but the users aren't seeing it. So I'm assuming that's why they added it. I can't speak on behalf of the developer, but it's a good thing that they added this rule. Exclude cookies. So if it's an admin user, then the cache is always excluded, even if you have the rule checked to exclude the cache for logged in users. So if that rule is not checked, even if you're an admin by default, it will not cache. If you want to say if you have WooCommerce installed, you want to make sure that WooCommerce items in cart excludes them from cache. Serving them a cached version could break things. And you can also set the cookie for a different level. You can set it for subscribers. You could do it for whatever you'd like, but the default is pretty much the best option for most use cases. You can also exclude the CSS in the JavaScript files here for that are not to be combined or minified. You have to include either the name of the file or just paste the URL in here, and it will do the rest. The CDN option, you can go ahead and you can configure it. So let's say you do CDN by photon. Please enter the URL to deliver your contents. So if you click I0, what this will do, you specify the file types. These are the images that will be supported. And if you want some of the sources, instead of all the sources to be served by the CDN, you can include it here. Otherwise, what you'll do is come over here and close, and then you'll click delete cache, clear the entire cache. Come over here, and let's see if we can find anything served. I might have to add a random image as a test. Let's see if the Hello World post has one. All right, we'll just click add new. We'll go to the I'll add one right now to demonstrate that the functionality works as you would expect. Is there anything in the media library? No. All right, let me see if I can find a random image file for you. That's an ICO file. That won't work. Here we go. There we go. We'll take that video cover image that I have for one of my other channels, and we'll just include this in the post. We'll update it. Now what we'll do is we'll just delete the cache, even though the cache should have been purged, and then we'll come over to here and look at it again. So we have this image right here that I just uploaded, and if you view it, it says it's coming from the Photon CDN. So what this is, it's effectively the Jetpack Photon image CDN without needing to install Jetpack. It has direct integration with other CDN features, which is also really awesome. You could set it up to use Stack Path for your CSS and your JS. You can use any CDN provider, which will prompt you to put the CDN URL, or you could just set it up for Cloudflare. Final option is the database section. The database section is quite straightforward. It allows you to clean up the items that it lists, trash content, pingbacks, comments, transient options, and revisions. Again, though, it's only available in the premium version. So that is everything you need to know for WP Fastest Cache. If you have any particular questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.